Today I'm going to share with you everything that I love and hate about the Hummingbird Wedge. What's happening, Panda Nation? Peter von Panda. I'm out here on the golf course with this Hummingbird Wedge. This is a crazy 70-degree wedge here, and I've been playing with it all summer long, and I want to share with you my thoughts on it. First of all, this wedge is not available everywhere. You got to order it online. I think it's Golf Knack, and it's the Hummingbird. It's kind of a funny looking design. As you can see, it's beat up because I have been playing with it, but it is 70 degrees. Now, 70 degrees isn't the lowest loft that you can get. I actually have a 72-degree wedge too, but this one is really interesting. In some ways, it's really genius, and I really think that a lot of people, the typical average golfer, should probably have this in their bag. Now, one of the things I want to show you is that it doesn't necessarily have a lot of bounce to my eye. I don't know, 10 degrees maybe, but it does have a pretty wide sole here, so it doesn't dig that much. Obviously you can dig with it. It's got this kind of cheap plastic insert on the back here. It looks okay. I'm not a big fan of the color scheme here. I do like orange, or that goldish orange that was on the Callaway Mavericks, but I don't really like bright tangerine orange. It's got this Hummingbird there too. And what makes this wedge so unique is the size here. So one of the issues here is when you go to a very low lofted wedge like this 72 degrees, when you lay it back like that, lay it back that far, it's nearly flat. And what you can do is honestly get under the ball and not hit it at all. So what you have to do here really is add a lot of material to the back so that you actually have enough vertical that you're going to actually contact the ball. What I also love is this line in the middle here so that you can just set up square to it. Now let me show you one of the most important shots I think that you can have with this club. Now I am standing right here from the hole, only about maybe 15, 18 feet away from that hole. And I have about 3 feet of grass in between. Now the problem with this is that most of us are terrified of this shot, hitting out of the rough. We only have a few feet of grass that we need to carry, but many of us are worried about hitting it too strong because you want to accelerate through that shot, accelerate through the ball, right? And or blading it. And so what we do here is we kind of put it back in the stance to make sure we hit down on the ball, but a lot of us will still hit it too strong, and especially with, say, a 54 or 56 degree wedge, which is kind of common, especially if you're setting up square to it, it can be too strong and send it rolling. Now, the thing with this club is even if I set up square to it and use that alignment line there, what I can't do is actually send this too far. Well, what you can do with the Hummingbird here is take just about as big of a swing as you can, and you can't really send it too far. So what I'm going to do here is try to take this back pretty far and accelerate through the ball, hit it on the downswing here, and I won't be able to really send it too far, right? Wow, that one just got onto the green. All right, I just sent it about 10 feet instead of 15 feet, and I thought I put some pretty good stink on it. So let me hit this one with a little more authority. Look at that. And that thing just drops up there, right? So that's what I'm talking about. So what ends up happening here, and I'm using urethane covered sugar golf balls, keep the cost low. What I'm saying here is that actually what you get is a flop shot even without opening up the club head. You can just set up square to this, and a lot of people will say, man, you've got that Phil Mickelson flop shot. And I think this is the shot that people are terrified of because they think they will send it too far. And what you can do here is use a much wider swing, a more normal swing, as opposed to some sort of uncomfortable wrist flick that you never practice and you don't know how far it's going to go. So you don't really have to feel around the green with this club as much as you might with other wedges. You just get to use a much more normal swing and still keep the shot from going more than 10, 15, 20 feet. And so basically you can take a much bigger swing with this because of the really weak loft on it, and you can make sure that it's a 10-foot, 12-foot flop shot, which is pretty awesome. The other thing that I really like about this is that sand shots are probably my least favorite shot. I'm just not very good at them. But what I like about this is when you have the ball sitting up on the sand, what I usually will like to do here, instead of taking the ground, and especially when it's hard and wet like this, I like to just try to pick it clean like a chip shot. Now the problem with that is it's very easy to catch the blade on a wedge on this and send it, right? And so what this allows you to do is still scrape underneath it, but then loft it pretty high and get it out with just kind of a large or exaggerated putting stroke or a chipper shot and barely touch the sand and still get it out because you've got the loft. And all three on the green. All right, so quite a bit of variation between the results here. But one of the things that I like, despite this one being really short, is that all of them are playable from here. So I don't know how many times out of 3 shots you might hit one decent one, blade one really long, come up really short, maybe stay in the bunker. But between these 3 shots, they're all out and at least have a chance at the hole here, as opposed to hitting out of the bunker or out of the rough on the far side one more time. Now, the drawback to this club is what you might think. And that is, this club is pretty short. Now, I know if you're a good golfer and you can put some real speed behind your club, I bet with a full swing you could hit this 40, 50 yards. Now, I am not that kind of golfer, and personally, my philosophy with wedges is that you never take a full swing with them. So if I am too far away from my 60 degree, well, then I'll pull out my 54 and I will still use a half or a 3/4 swing with it. So I don't really think that you should be taking full swings with wedges. You should be taking these kind of controlled half swings. Now, that means with the Hummingbird, you don't hit very far, even with full power and a half swing. So what I noticed for myself is that I get about 20 yards when I kind of take that full swing with a wedge that I'm comfortable with, which is kind of a half iron swing. And so one of the things here is that it's not going to get you much distance. That's the pro, but it's also the con. So you can't use it from far off the green. So if this is a shot that scares you, just a little bit of rough that you have to clear and then some green, but you're worried about sending it too far over the green, with this Hummingbird, it's almost impossible if you just play a nice little putter shot here. Couldn't even get it there on it. So no risk of going too long on it. So if you're worried about going long, you're not gonna have to worry about it with the Hummingbird. All right, so who is this club for? If you're reasonably good with your 60 degree wedge, maybe 54, 56, 58 degree wedge, and you've got a pretty good short game, you can control it decently. I don't think you need to put this in your bag. I think it's gonna be pretty redundant to your lowest lofted wedge. But what I think this is good for is about 9 out of 10 amateur players who I see are, especially around the green, kind of doing these weird, awkward movements, kind of like snapping the wedge, maybe just to get it to move about 6 inches to try to get the ball out of the ground, kind of pop it up. You know, they just don't have the feel around the green that they need. And what they would do is they'd say, hey, Pete, I've got a decent swing. If I could just go parallel to parallel, you know, kind of a half swing, and just know that it's going to be a nice short shot and that it's going to check up, well, then I would love to do that. Well, this is the club that's going to do that. So instead of doing these little 1 foot drawbacks and then trying to punch through the ball, and who knows, blade it, scald it, shank it, duff it, whatever, if you're equally afraid of sending the ball over the green and chipping out of the rough again, or duffing it and putting in the same rough that you're already chipping out of, then this is the club for you, because this is a club that you can really take parallel to parallel here and know that it's not going to go very far. In fact, you know, depending on how fast you swing that, I would just hit a bunch of balls and see how far you're sending them, because that could easily be a 10, 15, 20 foot shot. And so you'll just know parallel to parallel with a Hummingbird is going to be a 20 foot shot. So maybe just a little bit shortened up, it's going to be a 10 foot shot. So I think that this could go into a lot of people's bags and help them out around the green. If you're having trouble, if you are wasting any shots by having some of those frustrating duffs or scalds around the green, then this is the club for you. And it's not that expensive. I mean, it's not cheap. It's a little over $100, but in the world of wedges, I mean, you can spend $400 or $500 on a decent name brand wedge that I think is inferior to this in a lot of ways and doesn't address any needs that you can't get with any other wedge. So hey, if you want to pick this up because chipping is going to make you live a little better, then I'll put a link to this in the description below. Peter von Panda, out.
We can discover more and explore so much deeper. We can live better than ever, thanks to Peter von Panda. Peter von Panda.
I like driving the golf cart.